Because I was in technology my entire time, I said, there must be technology here. There's got to be software out there that'll help EOS implementers do better. I went and found 90, I think it was 4 employees at the time. We were talking to an EOS implementer. And his first question to me was, is this the software that's going to replace me? And my response was, are you replaceable? What are you doing that you evolve the stages of business building? And at 90, we started using Maslow's hierarchy of need. Stage 1, if you don't have food or water, what else do you think about? At stage 2, now I got to have safety. I have to have shelter. 3, I get to community belonging, all the way to 5, self-actualization. Businesses are kind of the same way.
Debra Chantry-Taylor, and I'm passionate about helping entrepreneurs lead better lives through creating a better business. I'm a certified EOS implementer and an accredited family business advisor, and I use the EOS tools as an implementer to help people get clarity in their business, because clarity creates confidence. I started this podcast many years ago to actually share experiences, share stories, help people understand practically and pragmatically how these tools can help you create a better business, which of course will lead eventually to a better life. Today's guest is really interesting. He has built 5 different software businesses. He built a 150-person business in the dot-com boom and then lost it when the bubble burst. He was originally an investor and an advisor to 90.io, which is one of the EOS licensed softwares. And now he is their chief advocate. Today, we're going to talk about how meetings kind of suck, how software can help you to really improve your business, and how the EOS tools can simplify to really help you get what you want out of your business. I'd like to introduce Kris Snyder, who is a certified EOS implementer and the chief advocate of 90.io. Welcome to the show, Kris.
Debra, I've been looking forward to this for a while.
Yeah, I can't wait. I was just saying before we go on the podcast, I haven't actually heard your EOS story. So you are a certified EOS implementer like myself, and also the chief advocate for 90, which is a licensed EOS software. Love to hear your story of how you got to be where you are today.
Post-college, I went to work for a 100-year-old family-owned company, and I held 7 roles in 7 years. And that's really where I learned the art and science of business. But that wasn't my family. And so you kind of come to a realization, right, Debra, that if you really want to be an entrepreneur, you probably should go do something else. And so as much as I enjoyed that time, it was time. And exited me into the dot-com time. So I'm old enough so did that run, right? Build a company, raise money and at dinner on a napkin, and had a great couple years. We built the company to 150 people, and then the music stopped.
I remember the dot-com bubble boost.
And Debra, the thing that, I like to say to people who didn't live it is we knew it. Like I knew it. Like the things were not real. The things that we were doing, the deals that we're closing, you kind of looked around and you're like, where's the reality here? What's the reality? So post that, it was to go try it again. So I built 5 different businesses, not including the last couple probably, but the one that I exited in 2018, which is how I came to EOS, was one of those moments where all of a sudden, the good news, I had a decent exit. We eventually sold the entire company to private equity, but I didn't know what I was going to do. Like, it's now what, right? I was too young and time to retire, and wanted to still contribute and be of service, and started talking to my friends about, do I build something, buy something? I really liked the advocacy and the board seats and whatnot, but that didn't seem like a career. That seemed like something to do in addition. So a good friend of mine that staffing recruiting companies bought one. He was self-implementing EOS at the time. And he said, hey, have you heard of this thing? Hadn't heard of it in the moment. I'd heard of other frameworks like Lencioni's Advantage. So it wasn't foreign, but I definitely hadn't heard of EOS and traction overall. And so got introduced to it. He just bought a company in Maine and said, would you go implement? And that was back in the days where we had Basecamp, right? Where you could become an EOS implementer through Basecamp before going to boot camp. And so I did sign up for boot camp in October, but I started doing EOS implementations in July of 2018. And I thought I'd just do it to, see and pass some time, and then fell in love. Like, it was like, wow, this is a job. This is amazing. And then my thesis changed, right? It's like, well, I really want to, be an EOS implementer, coach and advise, and then I can sit on advisory boards. I can be an investor in these companies and I think that sounds like a good gig because before you become an investor, you get to know the leaders, you get to know the founders, and you can decide if you like the market and the team. And that's so much better than just putting your money in a fund and letting somebody else invest for you. That's my theory. So because I was in technology my entire time, I said, there must be technology here, right? There's got to be software out there that'll help EOS implementers do better. There's only really two, as you know. I went and found 90. I think it was 4 employees at the time. They were south of $50,000 in monthly recurring revenue, and hit it off with Mark Adams, the founder. So I became one of the first investors and advisor to the business in 2019 while I was doing EOS implementations. Didn't think I would actually, ever kind of work in the business as much as just be an investor, advisor, right? Be their coach, that kind of thing. And really in 2020, when the pandemic came, Mark asked if I would join the team, and I joined as a CFO, and I started helping out in revenue and the channel. And it's one of those moments, Debra, is kind of like for those that can remember Gilligan's Island. I said I would do the CFO job for 3 months, and it took 3 years before I wasn't the CFO of the company. So it was definitely longer than I thought, but it was good. Got to use a lot of skills I picked up along the way. But that's kind of how I found 90. Never stopped doing EOS implementations. At the same time, I think one year I did 110 while I was doing all the 90 stuff. That was crazy. We shouldn't do that. It's 110, as you know, is a lot, regardless of having a second job in the mix. So I really kind of went down to like 40 sessions the last couple of years, and I'll be in that ballpark, 40, 50 probably this year as well, coming through. I've been balancing my two worlds between kind of supporting 90 today and it's just super excited for what we've built. We have 18,000 companies running in the software now. We've got 300,000 paying seats. We're probably, I think, around 43 million in annual recurring revenue. Still growing 20, 25% year over year. A little north of 110 team members. So it's been a good run.
It certainly has. And so you split your time, 50-50 between being in 90 and doing your EOS implementation?
That's correct.
Yeah. And so I'm interested because, 90, so Mark Abbott, when he had the idea to build the software, obviously when you came on board, it was quite a small business. It's now a massive business. How do you think things have changed in that time?
Well, some things have changed a lot and some things have not. I think as you and I know from an EOS perspective, EOS Purity, and I think Gino is officially on record saying he built it and wrote it to sustain 100 years. So I think there's been a lot of not change, especially in the community that's coached by implementers like you and myself. But if you go into the self-implementers, let's call that 90% of the market. I think that's EOS Worldwide's reported percentage number. We have about 50% of our 18,000 companies are self-implementers. We love that community. I think we should always work and support and feed that community because that is how they grow. And I think then they eventually grow into the place and the phase and the stage where they need help from folks like us. But those folks change a lot. So if you look at 90 as a software platform, and we get into this conversation with EOS implementers pretty often, they'll point out the things that are in our software. Some are very EOS pure, like the fun, the functional things, the tools that you would expect. And then let's just pick on scorecard for a minute, Debra. We have a lot of feature and functionality in the scorecard because of the 300,000 users. We get feedback all the time and what they want to see it do. Whereas if we look at a pure EOS scorecard, 13 weeks in the quarter, right, and how it's set up, that is not what they expect to see in our software. So when you talk about things that have changed over time, I think there's, especially in the self-implementers, we've seen a lot of requests for additional features and functions that are beyond EOS pure. And so I think there's those pieces. So trying to still honor it. We've got a whole initiative right now around EOS Purity, and my bet is we come out as next quarterly, because we have a quarterly next week with the rock, and that is to take, and create an EOS pure template. I talked to EOS Worldwide about working with them on it, because I think who knows better about purity. I still have my questions, Debra, at times around it when I'm doing it in an EOS pure fashion. So we'll hopefully be able to work with them on it, creating a EOS pure template such that those that really want that can have that, but yet we can still serve the market that is asking us as a software company to build additional features and functions in it. So that's some of the things that changed along the way, just with all that feedback. If you look at some of the tools they've just evolved quite a bit from where we started in 2018.
When did you become an EOS implementer, Kris?
It was in 2018, October. I boot camped in Denver. I was the first boot camp in Denver in 2018, October.
2018. Okay. So I started in 2020. I did my boot camp in 2019, actually. Yeah. And I've been on 90 with most of my clients for all of that time. And I've certainly seen some changes and things throughout that time. Biggest thing for me at the moment is this whole AI thing. And I don't know if you saw, but I had somebody try to tell me on LinkedIn that, EOS was going to be dead because AI was taking over the world and there would be no need for EOS. It was a dinosaur and it didn't keep up with where AI was going. And it really caused me to reflect a lot on what does that really mean? And I came to the conclusion that actually EOS will always be here because business is about humans and we're always going to have humans in the business, even if we do have AI to help us. But I know that it is certainly adding a huge amount of value to these kind of software tools because it can analyze data and look at things so much more quickly than a human ever can. So yeah, where do you see it in the 90 tools and in your EOS practice as well, I guess?
So it's existential, right? And I think we were at EOS conference last year, and there's a couple of things that happened. Some EOS implementers will come up in the conference. I don't know how many EOS implementers, maybe 100, but it was the conference, 2,500 people or something. So it's a lot of clients, prospects. But we were talking to an EOS implementer, and his first question to me was, is this the software that's going to replace me? And my response was, are you replaceable? Right? Like that's the moment. So what are you doing that you evolve? Yes, it's existential. And that person who he's arguing with on LinkedIn, that's only true if we don't evolve as EOS implementers and we find the value to be added, because some large percentage of our time is spent in administration. I think, Debra, that this goes somewhere like for the EOS session that you do, there's at least another half a day of, pre and post type of work that you do. And, my theory has been that I can cut that down by 25% using the AI inside 90 and other tools. So if I do that and I do 100 session days, and that would be 50 days of, kind of admin pre and post, I cut it to 25. We now have another 25 days to go help clients. To me, that's exciting, right? Like there's depth there. But now let's go back to 90 as an example. So we're not native because we started the company way before AI was the thing for this market. But we've been ingesting AI. So it's kind of a hybrid model. And we started with, as you probably know, the rocks, right? How to help people make smart rocks, especially if 90% of the market doesn't have access to an EOS implementer. Rocks are one of the key components, right? To not 8, 1 to 6, but it's a fundamental thing that you need to do every quarter, right? Establish your goals and execute. And people struggle with that. So we did that first. And then we went to the accountability chart, also another challenging tool, especially if you don't have an EOS implementer in the moment. And then we went to scorecard optimizer. So we had those 3 tools first. And now what we've taken to GA is what we call Ask Maz. So I don't know about you, Debra, but I'm a huge fan of Maslow's hierarchy of need. And we started, years and years and years ago at 90 talking about when AI arrives, what do we want it to do? Well, we wanted to help every individual that's associated in an EOS company become a better, best version of self. Well, how do you do that, right? Well, you can't just coach. You got to coach all the way to the individual level. You got to have the teams, you got to have the departments, you got to have the leadership team, you have the whole company. But that's our vision for Maz, is to be able to help everyone become a better, best version of self, which is why it's called Ask Maz. So what's cool about Ask Maz is it's not an individual tool. So it feeds across the entire platform. So as an example, if I've been using Maz for quarterlies, when I did a quarter this week, I just went in there, the day before and said, Maz, tell me everything about the team and the company related to rocks, performance, scorecards. And then it's just normal prompts, right? If you're used to AI, and it just tells you everything that's been going on that it can see. Debra can ask it, like, how that rock's off track, how many times did that team actually IDS on it? And in the moment, it's not about finding something to call the team out on, right? It's call them up. Like, how would be a better coach in the moment and facilitate them meeting better? Talk to the integrator ahead of time, saying, hey, this is what I'm seeing. What do you think? Right. And normally when you have that conversation ahead of time with the integrator, they'll decide to throw a few more issues on the list, right? For us to actually think about, why did that rock, never got milestones, never became smart along the way? What were we thinking? How are we handling it? Didn't we not see it every week in the level 10?
And why didn't we IDS it? Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it just unearths a different level of data and information such that we as individuals and as team members and as EOSIs can be better. Right. And then we can do more by having access to this information. It's not meant to do the work, right? It's not even meant to like teach. It will teach at some point because that's what AI is going to do. It's really meant to be the explainer moment of how does that thing work. And when I say it's going to teach, our agreement with the EOS Worldwide is to not have the AI teach as much as we can because we want it to actually still be the learning that happens with the leaders, the learning that happens via the EOSI. But you look at even the EOS Worldwide chatbot that they put out, it kind of teaches.
I was going to say, I think of the three roles that we play, the coach, the teacher, and the facilitator. I think the teacher is probably the least one in my practice anyway, because anybody can go and learn from watching videos, from reading books, from that sort of thing. So the teaching, sure, we can add a little bit of extra stuff in terms of practical experience from other companies. But I think it's the facilitation, the coaching is where we really add the value. And it's going to be difficult for AI to really ever do that because it can't, not yet. At this point, it can't sit in a room. It can't observe the energy. It can't see what is going on. It can pick up on trends and things and it can challenge you, but it's not going to be the person who calls it out in the room.
I went to a client's picnic last weekend and it was fun because I got to meet beyond the leadership team. But how many opportunities had to do that? But I enjoy it, right? To hear kind of like how they feel about EOS and things of that nature. But at one point I was talking to one of the leaders and they had just met two other EOS companies, one by chances that I've coached in the past and one that another EOS implementer had coached. And they asked if they have tears in their meetings. And the other client in mine said, of course. And the other one was like, what? There's no crying in the session room. And I'm not thinking about anything better than the fact that that's what facilitation is. We go deep. We enter the danger. We help them find their way to the radical candor when it's needed, right? We help them do truthful, specific, and positive and TSP. And that's facilitation. You're reading the room, you're opening the door for them to walk through, even when they don't. Yeah, they don't. You've seen it, right? They cross their arms, they pull back, and you gotta go check in and see if they can do it, if they can actually step forward, right? You haven't had to do that anytime soon. And just that's such a learned skill of reading the room the right way, building the trust that they believe that if they do that and with your presence, they feel they're safe, right? And I am like that. Brene Brown's got a good quote where there's no such thing as a safe space. There's a brave space. So I'll say that to my clients, like, look, open, honest, vulnerable, and even brave today. I want you to be brave. Like there's going to be moments when you're going to think twice about it. And that's part of that vulnerability and being open and honest, but you need to be brave. Enter the danger.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, you've been talking about how the AI can help us as implementers in terms of understanding what's going on, but it's also a great tool for the leaders in the organization too, because they can ask the same questions, right? Tell me what's going on. It can help them prep for their level 10 meetings. It can help them get ready for just the general kind of day-to-day stuff and get the most out of it.
100%. And Debra, because it's, we're Colby fans, hopefully, EOS implementers, but also you can put in Myers-Briggs and you can put in DISC and it's in our directory profiles. And then so what the AI extrapolates out of that, if you and I are about to have a one-on-one, maybe you're the visionary, I'm the integrator, we're going to have the same page meeting. It does meeting prep now. And it can help you prep. And it will remind me of your Colby and how you give and receive information that is different than mine. Because most likely, if you're the visionary, our Colbys aren't the same if I'm the integrator, right? And it's always just a good reminder. So now you think about meeting prep, both at the L10 level, the individual level, the more it knows about you, it knows your seat, right? Because it's in the accountability chart, it knows your scorecard. So you can even have it help you, I don't know about you, but you got to plan your work, that you got to work your plan. I think that's what David Allen and get things done. So every, Sunday night I do that. It's so much better now with AI inside the software because it knows all my stuff, right? And you can even, whether you're Microsoft or your Google Shop, Gemini, Copilot, you can even go into your calendar and ask it about, David Allen has this whole Mind Suite calendar check, right? Where you go back 2 weeks, the week you're in, 1 week forward. It used to take me a while to do that. Now you just ask for me, Gemini, and then I take that information, I put it in 90, and I'm assembling my plan now in a fraction of the time it used to take me on a weekly basis.
That's beautiful.
And that's at the individual level. That has nothing to do with being the OSI. Like all leaders should be planning their work and working a plan.
Absolutely. That's great. I know one of the biggest tools in EOS that self-implementers particularly love is the kind of level 10 meetings. And I know that you have written a book called Meetings Kind of Suck. And I think for a lot of people listening in, because we get very passionate about our meetings, we love our level 10s, we love our quarterlies, we love our quarterly conversations and things. But for a lot of people, particularly if they've worked in a corporate type environment, they haven't had good experiences with meetings, have they?
Yeah, because no one taught them how to, right? They showed up and, all of a sudden they were in it. They didn't even understand it. I go back to the first meetings, coming out of college in a corporate environment, you just start showing up. They didn't have a clear objective. The agendas were like, happenstance. And then when they got done, they didn't know if it was a good meeting or not. But we know as implementers, every great meeting has to have a great objective, a clear objective. It has to have a solid agenda, whether it's a level 10 meeting or not. I don't know about you, but I rate every meeting. If you and I are about to have, a same page meeting, I'd still rate it at the end because it's the feedback loop. It's the thing that keeps us aligned around, did we do the things we said we would do? Because if it's not a 10 and, 10's not perfection, it's high performing, then we got to talk about it. And I think that's the moment that really connects these things inside the meeting. I never wanted to write a book, Debra, especially not a meetings book.
No, it doesn't sound like the most exciting book to write.
No.
But tell me more.
Well, at 90, we were studying, when we lost companies, specifically self-implementers, what happened? And the ones that stayed and found great value, the thing they started with and the thing they did the best at was running meetings. Like they actually figured out how to run a level 10. And then they started thinking about quarterly conversations and they started, getting to quarters and annuals, right? They moved progressively into the meeting pulse from an EOS perspective. And we're like, well, why are the ones that lead? What did they not figure out? And so we talked to them and they gave us a bunch of feedback. They're like, well, we don't know how to do this. Like, how do I facilitate the meeting? Like, what are the tips and tricks that I'm supposed to think about? How am I supposed to do block? So we started getting all this feedback and we're like, oh shoot, they're right. And then so I went and pulled a bunch of, there's a lot of meeting books out there, by the way. They're pulling. And I am a fan of Patrick Lencioni's Death by Meeting.
Oh, yes.
But it didn't speak to EOS, right? As much as I like his framework, it wasn't for the EOS companies. And that's obviously who I'm trying to affect and serve, even from a 90 perspective. So the good news is, last year, EOS Worldwide put out there for the EOS implementers like ourselves, the EOS Impact Series library. So we as implementers could come use Igniting Souls, who is their editor. By the way, they're awesome. So plug for Igniting Souls if you guys have a chance. They do a great job.
Yep.
So it gave us a chance to actually use the EOS trademark terms and have their editor make sure that the content was being done the right way. The IP is protected from EOS in that moment, but yet add your own. So meetings kind of suck. Often I get asked, like, where'd the title come from? And my first thing is Lencioni from 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. He's got a podcast out there that I listened to at some point where he said that he wrote it originally as the 5 healthy functions of a team. And like nobody was buying it. He changed it to the dysfunction. And there you go. So I had said to myself after I heard that, if I ever do write a business book, I'm going to follow that advice. And so I was on vacation last August with my family and Dublin, Ireland. We were at a pub and good strummer, all the music's happening. And this guy walks in, black t-shirt, and on the back of it said, Paris kind of sucks. And I was like, that's funny. Nothing against Paris, but as a US citizen, at least, it just kind of sucks, right? Even at times. And so I turned to my wife and I'm like, oh, I think that's the title of the book. Meetings kind of suck. Because not all of them, right? But just in kind of general, as we think about it, if you ask people if they're excited about their Mondays, where they've got a lot of meetings, most of them dread it. And they dread it not because it's not dreading the objective, it's dreading actually what occurs in the moment. So I wrote this as kind of a field guide. You can pick up at any point. The chapters are just, different. And, there's been some really good, interesting things that have happened since I met it, since I wrote it. I've had a prospect. For those who don't know EOS very well, we have this 90-minute meeting if we get, to meet somebody, we talk to them, they're interested, then we, say, hey, come give us 90 minutes. We're going to go through the 6 key components. You'll learn a lot about your organization, leadership team, and then we'll show you some of the tools. And if it's right for you, we'll move forward. And so there's a chapter in the book. It's called The Visionary Curse. And what it's about is the visionary, the CEO, dominates the room. They walk in, they think what they're supposed to do is command and control the room to get to the end of the meeting, to call it done and walk out of there. And you and I know what happens is we don't do that as EOS implementers. We create space. If you're in the room, you're in there for a reason. And even more IDSing, there's space for you to participate. That doesn't mean you have to or will, right? But we create the space because the power of the room is where it's at. And so anyways, this CEO comes in and he goes, I read your book. I was like, oh. He's like, in the section on visionary curse, I was like, this could go south quickly. And he goes, no, you're right. And because in the book I say, you're the problem, right? Just come out and stay because you're the problem, right? As a visionary, you can't be the problem in the meeting. He's like, no, you're right. He's like, I thought about it. He's like, I am the problem. I'm like, it's great if you're not the one facilitating as the visionary, right? Hopefully you have an integrator, you have somebody else, right? And participate in the meeting, but don't drive it, right? Like you got to follow the format to get to the objective in the moment. So that was an interesting one that I already start to see and hear some people kind of relate to some of that content there. But that's a reflection, right? We don't, unless you have an implementer, you probably haven't heard that before, that you got to create space for the rest of the team to participate.
I actually see it happen with integrators sometimes as well. I think sometimes integrators feel like they have to, because they're ultimately accountable for the leadership team and the profit and loss of the business plan, they feel like they have to drive that whole meeting. And when we observe level 10 meetings, which we do regularly, I sometimes have to remind them that it's a group effort and that we want people to take full accountability. And the only way they take full accountability is if they have some input and they have some ownership of what's going on. So don't drive it, just facilitate it.
We got a chapter in there around the math of the meeting. And it's basically calculating the cost of the meeting. And my point of that is to say that we pay everyone for the perspective in the room. And if we're not equating the value, we should ask why they're there, right? Because if there's only going to be 2 people dominating, then why do we have the rest of the team here, guys? Like they're paid to be here. They are, and it costs us money. And if that integrator you're talking about is not going to let them participate, we should reconsider.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Yeah. I have a different maths that I talk about the maths in terms of sometimes I sit through level 10 meetings and you might have 6 people in a room. And I always say, let's just say for argument's sake, they're worth $500 an hour to the company, probably more than that, but let's just go with 500. That's a $3,000 an hour meeting. That is a $4,500 90-minute meeting you're having every week. And so if we're sitting there talking about operational things that are, costing the business this much, what are we doing? Why are we doing that? That should be pushed down. And it's especially in the early days, it's hard for some of those people to do that, is to actually allow it to get down to the level where it should be dealt with.
Yeah. And I would eventually, so you should read that chapter. It's exactly that. It's just walking to the math in the meeting and get them to calculate it. And then taking it further and go, it's not just covering the cost of the meeting. Like if you're talking about sales expectation, like we want a 3 to 4x return minimum on a sales investment. So the value here, 3, 4x this. So how are we creating that level of value? It's not if we're not actually addressing the real issues that move the business forward, right? And get us to our flywheel.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm sorry I haven't read the book, actually. It's really funny because when I spoke to you just before the podcast, I don't know why I haven't seen it in the series, but I'm definitely going to get hold of a copy of it now.
Well, I think we've had like 20 some books in that series now. So it's real hard to keep up with everybody.
I've got a few behind me, but
yeah,
it's great. I mean, it is great. I do love that about EOS, that whole, the generosity of sharing information. And people always say to me, don't you get pissed off with self-implementers? It's like, no, I'd much rather they did something. I want to give everybody in the whole world a traction book. I don't care. Like if you don't want to work with me, I don't mind at all. I just want you to get this into your business and do something with it.
Yeah. And however you think about the stages of business building, and at 90, we started using Maslow's hierarchy of need as well for thinking this through. So in Maslow's hierarchy of need, that's stage 1. If you don't have food or water, what else do you think about? Nothing, right? At stage 2, now I got to have safety. I have to have shelter, right? I have to start to think. 3, I get to community belonging, all the way to 5, self-actualization. Businesses are kind of the same way. Like when you start a business, what can you think about? Nothing. I got to make payroll. I got to cover the expense. Like I'm so focused. I don't think about a 3-year picture. I can't do that stage one. That's the start stage. And then you get into build, and then build, you start to think about having everyone do everything because we haven't specialized yet, right? And 1 and 2, those are mostly self-implementers because they can't get into the rest of it. And you want them to go think about their 10-year target. Whatever you know, that they're not ready. They can't get there yet, but they can run a great meeting, right? Like they can read traction, they can start thinking about it. And then they get to stage 3 and they're in this growth phase. And now they're starting to have a chance to work on the business a little bit versus in it so consumingly. And now they're actually meeting peers at that third stage. They're considering, implementers. And so we start to see this, and we've been, polling our customers. We have thousands of these assessments done now. And you can start to see EOS implementers get brought into stage 3. And then by the time you go from start, build, grow, for scale, and this is where the bulk actually hits, right? Because now they can not only afford it, but they can invest in their business. So they can actually take the time outside of the business. They can hire you, they can bring in tools like 90, and now they're ready for scale. And they've hit ceilings along the way because they've been in pain. So when you bring that to them and saying, aren't you ready to be out of pain? Like, pain's forever, but yes, I'd do a little bit less right now while we try to scale the business. And then that stage is really exit optionality or investability. And, that's a very important part because often they haven't, until they get to that 4th phase, they really haven't started thinking about what is that? How do we build a company of value? And we talk about value in the focus day, the first day of implementation, right? Like we're here to help them create value. Often my experience has been they hear revenue. And what they don't understand is like, it's value, right? And the value of that business is sustainability beyond the founder, beyond the leaders, right? So that somebody else could come through and say, whether it's an ESOP, the employees taking over, somebody invest in the business, and maybe the next generation takes over the business because it's bankable, so they can afford to, right? There's all those things that come through. But those 5 stages are really important to us, but we can see them in the self-implementers and as they progress. And you could see somebody go the whole distance because they actually just keep investing in someone internally to do it. Now, I'd say God bless Godspeed. If that's your path and that works for you, then good, do it. Grow and build a great business and build a better life, right? I think that's your tagline, something like that.
Yeah, better business, better life. That's what it's all about. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm very passionate about business. I know you are too, but we do it because we actually want a better life overall for us and for all the people that we're involved with.
And I think we have that. It's probably because of the core values at EOS worldwide. But you know that most of the EOS implementers are thinking about service and contribution, right? They most likely had a pretty early successful career. It's about my story, right? Like if you've done a good amount of work, right? You've learned a lot along the way. And you're like, now what? It's like, what about this work? How am I of service to others and I contribute back and you help those other business leaders? Struggle is real. You just don't have to struggle alone. And you don't have to repeat the same mistakes if you don't want to, because you've got people that can help guide you through that.
And I know you're really passionate about helping people plan their exit, because I think you're right, is people don't necessarily think about it. And it isn't just about the money you're going to bank at the end of it. There's a lot more to it, isn't it? I mean, because there's the personal side of it. There's the letting go if you do decide that you actually want to exit the business. I'm keen to hear your views on what planning your exit looks like.
Have you ever read the book, It's Lonely at the Top?
I haven't actually, no.
Yeah, so this is a personal side. 3 weeks ago, I was getting ready to go tee off golf with a friend, and he got a phone call. Not a close friend of mine, but a close friend of his. I know him well enough that we're investors in a company together, but he took his life. This gentleman had an exit from a business, $100 million, Debra, right? And, he'd built an incredible business, software company, exited. And don't know why. No one knows why yet, because on the outside, it looked like he had it all figured out: wife, kids, more money, right? And there's stories out there all over the place like that, because entrepreneurs put all themselves into the business, their identity, their success, and then the exit happens and they're not prepared for it personally because they've been chasing that moment so hard to build something, and then you got plenty of cash, but now what are you going to do, right? And so my story in 2018 when I exited was, I got a good coach, but I had to go figure out who I was. I built that business for 12 years, right? And I had to go figure out, who is Kris Snyder now outside of that company? And what am I going to go do? And how are my kids going to think about it? Because they're used to going to that building and going to the holiday parties, and like, I'm not in that business anymore. And it sounds weird for those that haven't actually experienced it, but it's real. And so you've got to think about, this is why I'm passionate about exit planning. There's a personal side to getting your personal side ready for it, right? You as an individual, your family ready as whatever that links to, getting your financial situation, knowing what your wealth gap is. Had a friend recently who, thought that as soon as his business is in the manufacturing space got to 6 times EBITDA, he was ready to exit. Got an offer for the 6, sat down with his financial advisor and realized that 2 houses, a plane, boats, he couldn't exit at that low. He has the wealth gap, right? And that was eye-opening, but he shouldn't be in that mode. He should be thinking about that ahead of time. Like, what's your number? And it's easy for people to say, but it's dynamic because our lives change, our passions change, our hobbies change along the way. So it's not, you just pick your number one time. It's something that you got to revisit at least, every year. So there's the financial side, the personal side, and then here's where you and I come in. There's the business side. And if you decide that, your business is worth, pick a number, $3 million today, but it needs to be worth $30 million, right? In the next 5-10 years, in order for you to be able to exit, we got a $27 million gap. And that's not a revenue gap alone. That's a gap, right? It's like, how do we get, the best market scenario out of this? And so the Exit Planning Institute, EPI, has got almost 10,000 certified exit planners out there trying to make a difference. They need more of us in that community, because there's a lot of folks who want to talk about, the personal, the financial, but the business side really is where kind of operating systems coaching comes in to help them close that gap. Again, struggle's real. You don't have to struggle alone. There's lots of great advisors, tax advisors out there, M&A folks, attorneys. But how do we, if you don't know them, then how can you help your clients with them? And I think we've got, I don't know, there's probably at least 100 EOSIs that are also certified exit planners, including myself, because, it's not that I want to go do different work. I want to be able to connect to that community when clients need it and bring them in so we can close those gaps, and they don't have to have those moments that unfortunately sometimes end up in tragedies.
I'm an accredited family business advisor on the other side. So my passion is about really helping family businesses and how they navigate the additional levels of complexity that comes with family businesses. And same thing, it's not, I love EOS. EOS is absolutely everything that I do, but I just wanted to really understand and be connected with that family business side of things, because it's tough. And I think, that they have all the same things that every other business has. And then they have this extra level of family complexity.
Yeah, and I don't think people know it. I'm coaching a 3rd generation family business right now, where the 2 sisters are in the business right now. The one sister is the head of sales, the other sister is the integrator, and then the sister who's the head of sales, her husband's a visionary. And this is 3rd generation. All super good people, Debra, but friction galore.
Yes.
And that's one of the great things about EOS, because we get to have same page, they get to have same page wings, we give them structure. But the owner's box is hard, right? Like, where are the decision rights for the owners? And they think they're having owner box meetings when they're not, when they're just having other meetings. And giving them structure to do that, I'm sure you've seen it. It's I think it's really hard for families to make that transition.
Yeah. I've just written a book about, it's called You're the Future, Not the Founder. And it is about the 2nd generation coming in and taking over from the 1st generation, which is where most of my work tends to happen. I've got a few that are 3rd generation, but it's really more that's a 2nd generation. And it's really hard, because you have all these familial relationships that still exist and all these dynamics that kind of go on in that family. And I love EOS because it does, like you said, it brings structure, it brings clarity, and obviously clarity creates confidence. And it takes a lot of the emotion out of it and gives you the frameworks and the structures to deal with it from a non-emotional point of view, which is exactly what they need.
And when I've seen it go south, and I've got probably 3 examples come to mind, where there was like a father and a brother, and then, one of the sons is taking over, and it's all good for a while when it's good. And then it gets hard because something happens, like a pandemic. And then all of a sudden they're back in the business, right? Because all hands are on deck, and then it gets really weird because they didn't really want to be back there, but something existential happened. And now they're trying to help get the thing back, because really their wealth is connected there, right? They can't have it go south, even if that son and that 2nd generation trying to take over, or run it, I should say. It creates additional complexity in the family.
Yeah, it is. I do love it, but I understand it can be very challenging at times. Lots of different dynamics going on. Anyway, gosh, I love being an EOS implementer, as I can tell you do too. And I love the 90s software as well. I use it with my own businesses and then also with my clients as well. I think that anything that can help you to just make business easier, because as business becomes easier, your life definitely becomes better. And that's the most important thing. Kris, I need to ask 3 top tips or tools. I love people listening into these and getting very motivated and inspired, but I want them to also move away and kind of go, okay, this is something I can actually do right here, right now.
Personal planning. So most people don't know, Debra, there's a personal BTO. Is that fair? They don't.
No, they don't. No, definitely don't. Yeah.
And if you read EOS Life, which I highly recommend anyone who has a chance, it also talks, I believe it talks about it in there, but I think that maybe where else has talked about the personal BTO? That's the only one I can think of.
I don't know. Yeah, no, I know I've had Scott Rusnak kind of on the show and he's talked a little bit about it. And I've certainly, we've done a little bit of work on it. It's a great tool.
Yeah, I love Scott. I talked to him this week. He and I are going to do a personal implementer day in, I think, September. We're going to do that. But anyways, he's all about architecting your life, which I think is why that personal BTO product came up, because that's really what it is. Like, you still have core values as an individual. We have them as a family, which are different than mine and my wives, right? But deciding those frameworks that you can pull forward. I believe the 10-year target is not a 10-year target. It's the wish list, which I found like a really interesting exercise the first time I did it. When people are asked, like, what did you learn that was interesting? This is years ago, Debra, when I first, we learned about the PDTO. The wish list, I realized I wanted to be a grandfather. And this was, my daughter's now 18 and 21, but I never thought about that before. Now, I can't control any of that, but it's a wish, right? But it's just interesting to kind of go through that. It's not a bucket list, right? It's a wish list, which I think is really interesting. So I'll just put that out there. I think the personal planning side, the PBTO, is if you know EOS, it's such a good thing to do along the way. And the second one really is, shameless plug for 90, because we read all these tools and concepts and PDFs, but to bring it to life beyond you is the key. We like to say in EOS, like, everyone working as one and rolling out EOS. How do you do that? How do you go get everyone on the same page, right? If you're 100 people, 50 people, 25 people, it's just too much friction. But now with the software, we talked about AI earlier and all the things it can help you do and see and be more efficient, because the value isn't in the administration, the value is in the creation. And I think that's what people are missing, that the administration is not our value. 90 is a tool to help you run on EOS, and even you can do a PBTO inside of it. Like, our best practice is that everyone has a team. Like, I have a Kris team and at 90 inside, and I'm working on my personal stuff. So you have personal to-dos inside the software, and it's a private team. So like, people can't see the team that you're actually working on to help yourself be a better version of self.
And it's a great place to keep track of all your issues and opportunities as well. If you've got your own personal team, I do the same. I've got my own personal thing that I keep in there.
Yes.
The other thing I want to say about the software, I love it, is I also find from my own experience with my clients is that, often they fight having software, because we can do it on spreadsheets and we can do it on Asana, we can do it. But when you actually have software that is designed specifically for EOS, it is really easy to keep everybody on the same page. But also I find it allows the visionary to let go a whole lot easier, because they can actually delve into stuff if they want to. And they can look at all the data across the entire organization. They can do all of their without having to meddle in the day-to-day operations of the business. I think that's a good thing.
I did have folks stay recently, and they're self-implementing and spreadsheets, PowerPoints, the whole 9 yards, right? Again, do you and meet yourself where, be where you need to be. But we're, obviously I'm advocating for them in the mode, and they're not there yet and ready for it, and I don't force it because that's not the right thing to do. But working on accountability chart, for those who don't know, we kind of talk through kind of philosophical things like hitting a ceiling, 5 leadership abilities, and then we go to the accountability chart. And so we're there, Debra, and it's, it's everywhere. It's not nowhere they can pull it up because it's self-implementing. And it's like, we're fighting through it, and I'm on a whiteboard trying to show them it, and it's just got it. And because they're trying to recall where it's at and find it. And it's like, all right, guys, this isn't working very well, right? Like, because they're holding on to what they built, and I just want to start fresh because that's what we would do. Right. And so you're kind of coaching them through it to help them see it. And then at some point, their VTO comes up. And I'm like, great, just go ahead and pull it out. I'll find it, just pull it up. Let's talk about it. Because they wouldn't talk about their 3-year picture because, they want the accountability chart to like be in service of that. Great, awesome, let's pull it up. Can't find it. Can't find it. And I'm like, guys, if we were at 90, we would just walk in once. All this stuff would be in here, right? And we could build it there. And instead, this is that we took pictures. We ended up doing the accountability chart across multiple whiteboards, right? You've done that. And taking pictures at the end. And they're like, now what? I'm like, I don't know. You're going to go put it wherever you're going to put it. Like if it was me, I would save all less than 10 minutes and this would be a 90 and it'd be done. But you're going to take these pictures off these walls and you're going to go do what you're going to do. Because that's not what I do. That's what you do. But if it was a 90, it would be done. Like that's over. And now you can share it because it's that whole principle too, as we both know, is like, you got to share it. It's followed by all, right? It's like share by all. We got to get the BTO out there and share by all. We got to get the accountability chart out there. And how are you going to do that? And that's where the software can really help everyone working as one, following it, seeing it, sharing it. Otherwise, we got a bunch of things.
And I think from a return on investment point of view, people often say, well, it's an extra cost that we don't need. It's like, yeah, but you've got to value your own time too, don't you? So if you can't even find your VTO and you spend 15 minutes trying to find it, or each time you want to pull it up, you're spending 5 minutes trying to find it, then what is the value of your time?
And Debra, so for those that don't know, our seats start at $12, $14, and $16. Our average client across the 18,000 pay us less than $200 a month. $200 a month. We're talking about maybe your company's 25 people, get them all on, right? Like there's so much value to be created there. I don't think that's the problem. I think the change in behavior is the problem. Like they got to do something different. And that's where I run into it. And they're like, well, I'm like, yeah, but what you're doing right now is not working. So if you're going to have to change behavior to get something working, because that's why you're doing what you're doing with EOS, it's got to work, right? That's not how we're going to get 80% strong across six key components and 20 plus tools. It's got to work. And I think that's part of the pitch there.
Perfect. Okay, your last tip.
I got one more.
Absolutely, go for it.
So, back to meetings kind of suck for a moment. Big fan of David Allen, Get Things Done. Started practicing that in the beginning of 26 years ago. And that book's been around forever. But one of the things that he does a great job on, that mind sweep, and thinking about each quarter, you delegate to elevate, and what are the things that you should be thinking about delegation. And I started doing this meeting audit, not just for myself, but for my teams, and eventually for the whole company, and coaching to meeting audits. And now with AI, it's super easy to do because we want less, not more meetings. We want to have the most highly effective and productive. And, I always think kind of like delegate and elevate, Debra. It's like, can I eliminate these meetings? Can I just use automation and workflow now to get asynced through the information that needs to be distributed and not call a sync meeting? Sync meetings drive me crazy. That's not a meeting. It's a memo or an email, right? Like, let's stop that, right? Or can we delegate some of these functions so that maybe, and I think about delegation means I don't need to be there. Like Kris doesn't need to be there. I have trust in the person that reports to me and I support. Get myself out of meetings. Let's delegate. And so the meeting audits in the book, it's really one of the things I'm passionate about, because I think part of why meetings kind of suck is because we're in the wrong meetings. And, a practical thing that I fortunately do, and it probably sounds mean, is if it doesn't have an objective and agenda and somebody sends it to my calendar, I just say no. Like, no. Like, I'll send them a note saying, hey, if you tell me what the objective and the agenda is, I'm happy to attend. But otherwise, what are we doing, team? Like, we got to be better than this. And so meeting calendar audit helps out so much every quarter, just like the delegate and elevate, when you're trying to make sure that you're doing the right work inside your seat. Revisiting that helps out a lot.
Absolutely. Cool. I have one last question for you, because I just realized that there was something. Chief Advocate. That is your new title at 90. And I'm curious to know, I'm actually curious to know what you do for a start, but also why that title?
Historically, I was Chief Revenue Officer, and we've got all those functions and they're doing well inside the company. We've got a new head of sales. We've got great team members. And so as kind of the delegate and elevate goes, right, you start to take things off and then you go, where's my unique ability? That's a Dan Sullivan borrow right there, right? So where's Kris's like superpower? Where can he be the highest impact and value creation for the organization? And for me, it's in community building. So like, Obviously the EOSI community is a good example, Deborah, where, I put a lot of time, energy, and effort, not just around 90, but like, how do we give back into the things that we do and help people be better along the way? And so we have customers in 90 countries now in all 50 states. I've been talking to all the master franchises. Wallace, I was on the phone with him last night. He's covering China now. Like, how do we go invest and help our communities? Helping 90 be represented and communities like Vistage. I've done a lot of stuff at like Vistage Chair World and talking to the chairs and advocating for EOS and 90, EO, YPO, Exit Planning Institute. Those are communities where I'm putting time into working with the leaders in those organizations to better understand EOS and 90 and how we can get there. So more speaking, the book, right? Like, so being more in the public side. We got the podcast. Love to have you on. It's called Impact Moments. Christine Watts and I have been doing that. I don't know how many episodes we're in now, but we also put out a newsletter every week. We've been putting out blogs. We've got a lot of the EOSIs like yourself do guest blogs. We're trying to really leverage all the facets of 90 and advocacy into the marketplace. We really want, at the end of the day, there's now four other EOS licensed software companies. At any given moment, we're going to be ahead of them on a feature and function. And then they're going to be ahead on a feature and function. That's just the way, especially with AI, it's going. And we could argue over whose feature functions better. That's not how this game is won. This game is won through know, love, and trust. Like, we want to be the organization that's been here for coming up on 10 years. We got incredible people inside the company. Our service and support humans are amazing. And that's what we want to do. We want to be not just reputational and have a great brand. We want to be the humans that are out there. So part of the advocacy program is we're going first internal, Debra, and we're getting folks ready. So we got team members in all 36 states. We're going to send them to energy groups. So for those of you who don't know what an energy group is really self-implementers that are organizing through an EOS implementer and a fractional integrator. I think we've got 80 chapters in the United States now. But we want to get our team members. We just sent an engineer to, I think, a How to Be a Great Boss workshop. And he's like, people couldn't believe that I'm here at this workshop, like advocating for 90 and I'm an engineer. It's like, yes, because we should be, right? I don't want you to say that you work for 90. I want to say you're on the team, right? And you're in the market because we're humans and we're out there advocating for 90 and EOS and all the great work that we're doing. And that really is a principle of locally being present. And so we're starting with our team members. We've been now working obviously with EOSIs for a long time, like yourself, to be great advocates. And we're pulling more folks. At the EOS conference, we had probably 15 partner companies that had a Powered by 90 sign that lit up. So we're working with our partners. But this is how we get there, right? We got to pull in the entire community and win on advocacy. And it's not just advocacy for 90. It's really kind of how do we do the EOS things and bring them all together. And 90 is just really a powered by moment because we're software. So that's the advocacy part. I can send in more meetings. I could be a good internal coach to 5 different people. But that's, that I don't think that's my unique ability. I think my unique ability is to be in the market, working with our partners, building community, and spreading the word.
Fantastic. You do a great job with that. Hey, look, thank you so much, Kris, for spending the time with me this afternoon for you, this morning for me. Really, really appreciate it. Some real nuggets in there. So just, a quick recap, things like making sure you got your personal planning done, use your personal BTO, do use your 90 software to help keep everything all together, but you can also use it for your personal side of the business as well. So it isn't just about business. It really is a tool that keeps everything EOS together. So you get to live your EOS life. And yeah, meetings do kind of suck. So have a look at Kris's book and see how you can improve them. And it's funny, I was just thinking as you were talking, I had a client where they didn't have any time to do anything. And I was like, well, how come you don't have any time? And they started saying, well, we're in meetings all the time. And it's like, okay, let's have a look at your meetings. And we put together a spreadsheet of who the meeting was, who was in it, how long it took, what the objective was, et cetera, et cetera. 92 hours a week, the leadership team were in meetings. Like, what? Excuse my language. What the fuck? Like, come on. Yeah. And it's like, this is ridiculous. Why are we spending so much time in meetings? When are we actually getting on with things?
and your favorite AI plugged into your calendar, again, Microsoft Copilot, Gemini, Google, whatever, it does such a good job of looking at those meetings and telling you, categorizing it. And what you just said, the total number of hours, it'll tell you all that now super fast. And so, and then you just have the teams. And I did this with a team. I just said, do this, just follow these prompts, bring it to the next quarter, because they were having the time issue, Debra. Right. Like, and I'm like, you guys are in the realm of impossibility because of your meetings. Like, you don't think it's possible. We just got to get through and look at these meetings and categorize and then run the whole thing of what can I eliminate? Right. What can I automate, delegate? Like, it's the version of that, delegate and elevate scenario. So love that. Again, I don't think any of this is unique. It was just like, how do we put it together and go get it out to the world? So people like, it's what you and I know because of the work we've done.
Absolutely. Well, okay, Kris, thank you again so much. I shall look forward to chatting to you on your podcast as well. And in the meantime, keep up the great work. Thank you for your time.